Hi everyone, and welcome to the All Things ITSM Global Podcast, coming to you from Knowledge 16 in Las Vegas. I'm Kirsty McGowan, and I'm here with Carlos Casanova.
Hello, Kirsty.
Charlie Betts.
Christy.
And now we're speaking with Elinor Klavensof from Forrester Research. Hi, Elinor.
Hi there, thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to have you back again.
Hello, Elinor. Last time we spoke to you, we spent a little bit of time talking about, organizations, some of the challenges they're running into with, multi-generations, and how do we manage, the 25-year-old that's coming in and the 55-year-old that's been there for a while, and management structure that's maybe ingrained on one style versus the other.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've been doing a lot more work, around that space. What have you found out in the last 6 months that maybe could help us kind of understand that challenge a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, so the last time I talked to you guys, I came in here with a big bombastic statement. Said ITSM is dead. We've dialed it back a bit.
Life support.
We had that conversation with someone else just before,
So I was sent as the messenger to bring that scary message, but really I have another scary message, but it's a little more refined. It's not ITSM is dead, as we said before, but that the way which we deliver technology services needs to fundamentally change to embrace a new paradigm. And what we found is a really successful way of presenting that new paradigm is looking at the millennial workforce.
Right.
So this millennial workforce, right now, they're a pretty significant portion, and these are people who are 36 and under. But by 2022, they'll be half of the workforce. So this is a wave which you can't deny. And what millennials epitomize are the desires of people to have autonomous, flexible services. And what I mean by that is that you've got a huge cry for self-service. You've got a huge cry for knowledge management in whatever form you're offering it. And you've got a huge cry for these services to be delivered regardless of location or time zone, because the new way that we work is not 9 to 5.
Right.
No.
So also important to say is that we talk about millennials, but for a lot of people who are good with technology and feel that these things define them, they say, well, why do we have to talk about this millennials? It's not important. As they say, it's just more a factor to make the business case that you need to change the way which you deliver your technology services. And we found that to be pretty effective for folks who are kind of fighting that a bit.
Yeah.
Interesting. Certainly, as we look at how IT is delivered, perhaps more internally to the IT organization, we also see, I think, a strong alignment of millennial culture with Agile and DevOps. Now, the two, I'd be cautious to equate the two, because, of course, Agile's been a thing for 20 years now, and there's a lot of people even my age who can be fairly agile. But that said, we do have a large legacy IT workforce that's used to waterfall development, that is used to very heavyweight processes. You put in your ticket, and internal or external, you still are. It's not an always-on experience. And so, how do you see this playing out? I mean, there's almost like a workforce retraining. Like we have to we don't need to worry as much about the millennials maybe as the 45 to 60s who still have lots of runway and are not going to retire. So what do we do there?
Absolutely, and I think that's why I say I still have to carry the difficult messages, which is that you just need to do more of everything and you need to do it better, which means that you still need to keep your phone support, you still need to keep your walk-up from a service desk perspective, but then you also need to expand your channels. You still need to support folks in the way that they've always worked, so you don't want to alienate that knowledge and that know-how. You don't want to be an organization reinventing the wheel. And so that is really the challenge, is doing more and doing it better, and that's why I say once again, I get to be the face of bringing the message that no one wants to hear.
Yeah, I think what you notice too is that when a millennial, or even anyone really working in IT now, when you have an issue, your first port of call is not to call the service desk. Your first port of call is either to talk to the person next to you, to go to Google, to do something else.
Say Google is the first.
Google's your first. It's not your internal service desk. That's almost a port of last call. If I can't find another way to fix it, then I'll call the service desk.
And that is once again a millennial and an everyone issue that believe it's 53% of your workforce tries to solve a problem themselves
Yes.
before contacting
Yep.
the service desk. Believe it goes up to around 63% for millennials.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
by the time someone is calling you, most of the times they're already a few steps into a failed
They are,
interaction.
yes.
So what we're looking for is the ability of tools to show a longer pipeline, to
Yes.
show that
Yep.
visibility, so that you can figure out what's going on for the folks who
Yep.
do want to solve problems
Exactly.
themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, I know, myself at home with, whatever issues, you run into something and, try to figure it out, go to Google. If I do end up getting to the point where I call, a lot of times, and I try not to be abrupt about it, but I'll interrupt them and say, look, please don't go through your script through steps 1 through
Yes.
7.
Yeah.
Because I've already unplugged it, I've already
Yep.
recycled it, whatever it is.
Yes.
I'm already here.
Yes.
Yep.
Can you please either start there or send me to the next person?
Yep.
Exactly.
And they try to say, well, but it's like, no.
so
I already did it. I already went through your website. I did all your knowledge stuff. I did your
Yep.
wikis. I did your FAQs.
Yeah.
I've
You
done
haven't
Google.
got it there. Yeah.
Nothing's there. Here's exactly what I need. So, I mean, I know I find it frustrating, and I'm
Yep.
a little past the millennial stage. So I can only imagine, that audience that starts there.
Yes, and that's a great point, because the point is that we know that technology and the business are so intertwined that these are not separate entities. And millennials also have been born, that's what it means to be a digital native. You see the world with that same blurriness. You see these two also as intertwined. So they're the best advocates
Yes.
of IT being the business and figuring out how to make these end-to-end services possible. What we're seeing is some of these born digital companies have the ability to be a little bit more agile in the services that they offer, but figuring out how to improve that onboarding process is
Right.
once again another one that we're hearing a lot about, because the problem with millennials is that they don't stick around as long.
Right.
And that they want to know that they're contributing, they want to know that it matters, they want to know that they are enabled to do the job in front of them and be productive, that they have the tools to do it. So you're seeing an average tenure of 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
So that becomes a huge problem. You can't wait to get people up to speed. How do you give them the tools to be productive, but also how do you protect yourself so that all these new faces that you have running around don't cause any problems?
It's a real difference. I mean, my parents' generation, they started work with a company when they left
Yep.
education, and they stayed there till they retired.
Yeah.
Whereas my generation, I think it's sort of probably about 5 or 6 years is, certainly in my case, in my husband's case, it's always been sort of that 5 or 6 year
Right.
spell to move on to something else. But as you say, the millennials is so much shorter. If you haven't captured their attention, they're not sticking around, they're moving on to the next challenge.
And they're looking for you to prove what you can
Yeah.
offer them, and they know what
Yes.
good looks like, and they expect
Yes.
to be served in their jobs the way they're
Yep.
served in their personal life, because as a trade-off of not expecting to work 9 to 5, your job takes on a great importance, and you
It
don't
does.
see that
Yep.
line.
Right. That's a very good point. Yeah, you don't, back when it was a 9 to 5 job, you put up with it because you
Yep.
left it at home. Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing that I found interesting, and I need to find the details on it, is we always talk about, well, it's an attention span thing,
Yes.
right? But, and I got to find the report, they actually did some studies on it, it's not, okay? It's actually not the attention span, because they've done the same exact tests, from 1920 to now,
Yep.
and they find that the attention span is actually identical. It's the accepted level of boredom.
Right.
When we were
Yep.
growing up,
Yeah.
we expected there would have been 2 hours out of the day or 7 hours
Yeah.
out of the week that we had downtime. That was expected.
Right.
Now it's, well, if I have downtime, there's 7 other options that I can fill that downtime with. Or because things are coming more on demand, I can push that, get something else done, and then come back to
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
So, I know for the last year or two, we've been talking about it as, oh, they don't have the attention span. And now the studies are coming out, it's like, no, they have it. It's just that the tolerance for the boredom is not there.
Yeah,
So I don't know if you're
context
seeing,
is different.
yeah, so I don't know if you're seeing some of that as well.
I mean, I would probably try and flip it in a positive way and say tolerance for boredom, but also desire to contribute.
Yeah.
So I think that is the flip side, is that everyone, wants to believe that they're contributing something. They want to believe in their organization, really grew up with the values of, as I said, customer experience and technology, which is a great opportunity, but also a huge pressure to deliver. I think that it's our job to figure out how to help organizations offer these services, and that's what we're interested in, and spending a little bit more time figuring out in this next year is for these organizations that weren't born digital, how do you switch to this flexible, autonomous model?
Yeah, well, I think it's this this whole question of design and the user experience, the customer experience. I mean, it's a thing, design thinking.
Yep.
Major movement, kind of in the background, but it's a big part of the conversation. As I've been pointing out in other forums, we've spent the last 15 years training hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of Scrum product owners. And yet we've done this without a real clear consensus as an industry what product ownership and product management even really mean.
We've had that conversation a bit, haven't we, Charlie?
Yeah, well, I had to repeat myself sometimes.
Yeah, no.
But
Eleanor, you're right, that's
Yeah.
the problem.
Yeah, I mean, the boredom piece. I think you're right. It's not it is a boredom thing, but I think it's also that opportunity to say, there's a period here, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, for me to contribute in another way on another thing. So whereas again, we kind of looked at it the other way. So it's interesting that it goes back to the buy-in, the ownership, the contribution to there's an end goal. I'm not just going through the motions.
Yep.
Yep. And my favorite example at the moment, HubSpot has their engineers release code to let me get their figures right, to 20,000 customers on their first day. So, I mean, it's a great figure to put out there, but also the point is embracing a tangible contribution that you can help your employees make, and then having all of the services leading up to that first day prepared so that you're in the place to do that.
Yeah, so I think it's that whole boredom thing, but I think it is more about you want to feel that what you're doing is actually important.
Yep.
Yes.
That it makes it's making a difference.
Yes.
Yep.
You're not happy with just ticking boxes and
Exactly.
and the rest of it. You want to know you're contributing, you're important.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, which is actually great news, because as I think we mentioned, we're interested in this enterprise service management possibility, but you need that mentality to
Yes.
really make it work,
Yeah,
because
you
without
do.
a common goal, it's not really a possible mission.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you, Elinor. Great
Thanks
to
for
talk
having
to
me.
you
Thank you, Elinor.
again. I'm sure we'll have a chance to chat
As long as
again
you're
in
not bored with
future.
us.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's been a very enjoyable 10 minutes.
Thank you, Elinor.